And we're back here on the Talk of Pittsburgh, 1320 WJAS. Daryl Grandy here. And again, it is that time, once again, my favorite time of the week, Saturday mornings. And it's a chance for me to talk with Elise Bickel Tauber of Bridge Home Realty, bhsold.com. Love this half hour. It's real estate in the morning. And Elise, welcome to the station.
Hi, so good to see you again.
So good to see you too as well. And you're not coming alone. As always, you have great guests with great information about all things real estate. And you have a special one this week. Talk about who you have.
Yes, we have someone not from Pittsburgh for the first time on our show. It's actually
actual outsider?
An outsider, yes.
Ooh.
And you know what? We talk about markets and they're so hyper local, but I think it's good to talk about markets across the country as well. So today we have Laurie Savino. She's with the Cochran Group. How you doing, Laurie?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me, Elise.
Absolutely. This is just fantastic. I'm super excited. I always start every show with interest rates. We're seeing around 7.2. Is that currently what you're seeing as well for a conventional loan?
Yes, it's a tad lower. It's a little under 7, but exactly the same, yes.
Yeah, fantastic. And you know what? These rates aren't going to be plummeting down anytime soon. So I always tell people, if you find the right deal, now's the time to buy and refinance if and when the rates do come down. Do you also agree with that?
Exactly.
Yeah, perfect.
Absolutely. Finding the dream house is much harder. So if you find it, you can always refinance going down the line. It's such great advice to give to clients because they don't really realize they're waiting, but that house will just kind of, pass them by.
Right. I don't know what your market exactly looks like, but I know for ours, if we were to get into the 5s, which is like the magic number, even high 5s, I think it'll just be an absolute bloodbath. So you're going to be paying more for that house anyway. You're going to be paying, a lot more. Yeah. So give me like a 5-minute rundown about yourself. What your business looks like, what you really specialize in.
Sure. So I've been selling real estate for 6 years. I am an associate broker here in New York, and I'm a salesperson in New Jersey. I am with the Cochran Group, which is, everyone knows Barbara Cochran from Shark Tank. So the name of the brokerage is very recognizable and helps me a lot in terms of my sales when I'm meeting with clients and realize what she started and how she began and built this empire. We have one of the best CEOs that are in any brokerage. So it's just being able to get, people's listings up and, being able to really, get some things. So anyway, so it's really a little bit about me.
Yeah. And, tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm a big follower on your social media. I'm pretty sure you do a lot in the luxury market. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. So I specialize in luxury. I have a lot of designations. I'm a certified negotiator. I'm actually certified with the Luxury Marketing Association, which really helps me with my clients in terms of selling luxury properties here, both in New York and New Jersey. And I'm actually really excited because I am going to be a certified guide for Exactly What to Say by Phil Jones. So
nice.
It's just really I just love, it's just, he wrote an amazing book, and really to have that language and help my clients has just been really great. So I'm excited. Right.
I love that. I mean, we've been talking a lot about investing in our last episodes, and we've been talking about the, I don't want to say the lower end market, but in sense, lower market, first time home buyer, stuff like that. When it comes to luxury, what do you see is really different for someone who's thinking about buying or selling in the luxury market? What should they be looking for in a really good agent?
So, big thing is negotiation and relationships. I mean, I'll give you a great story. So we were helping a young couple. It was me and an agent working together, and we were trying to find them a luxury apartment in a brownstone in Brooklyn. And of course, as you know, the inventory is so low, right? So it's down really. Brooklyn is down 39% over last year. So they were actually a relocation. So they were, their company was going to pay for everything. So we were running out of time. And an agent called her, and the agent I was working with, and said, "Hey, I'm putting this, apartment up on the market. What do you think I should price it at?" And she goes, "Wait." He's like, "I have somebody," right? So we were able to show them the apartment before it hit the market, and we're able to do a deal. And that in the luxury market is so important, the relationships that you have with other agents. And we would never have been able to get them this apartment otherwise. If she did not have a relationship with that agent and the agent didn't trust us, that we were able to get our client to the closing table, would never work. So I think you have to make sure that you are working with a agent that has been in the market for a while, that's working for a really good agency, that has really good relationships, you have to really ask those questions to make sure that you're hiring the right agent, because I can, tell you story after story of what I've been able to do with my clients that other agents have not been able to do.
Oh, absolutely. And what I see that here in Pittsburgh, I do a little bit of luxury. I have an agent on my team, Norge Borio, who specializes in luxury. I do a lot of the investing side, but on the investing side, it's the exact same thing. I think a lot of people out there think, agents, they're trying to pit each other, against each other, and they're fighting, and it's all this competition. And I actually think it's the opposite. I really value the other agents out there who are doing what I'm doing, understand the grind and the hustle, understand the same issues I'm dealing with. I love to build relationships with other agents and do exactly what you're talking about. Hey, we're about to list a 4-unit building. Do you have someone for it? A lot in our marketplace for investors never hits our MLS system. They're doing these deals because, someone knows someone who's listing something. And so I think relationships are absolutely huge.
Yeah, I'm actually a first-time investor. Well, my family, we own commercial real estate in New York City, but I bought my first investment property in the Jersey Shore, and just having the investors at a different head and really being able to talk to people. You can put out an email, and I can do something off-market and be able to sell it where most agents can't, because that relationship is so important. And yes, we have all these internal emails, and I think the average consumer doesn't realize, because unfortunately, realtors, we have, and in any, profession, but we have a bad rap, and, people don't realize how much value we bring to the table and being able to do things you will not be able to do on your own.
Right. I absolutely 100% agree with that. Is there anything that you're seeing in your current marketplace when it comes to listing luxury that is, really, really important versus just listing I don't want to say a normal house, but, a home that's not in the luxury marketplace?
Yeah. So the pictures really matter. Whether you have to do staging really matters, because even though it might be a luxury apartment, maybe it's a little older, maybe the furniture doesn't look great. So right now I'm doing a duplex, and I'm bringing in a stager just to sort of freshen things up. And, when I had, mentioned this to the seller, she's like, oh, wow, this is great. And because staged apartments sell 25% higher than unstaged. So it's definitely different, where if it's in a lower price market, I may not have to do that. But in a luxury, someone's paying, they need their, that person's vision might not be the new person, right, coming in, and they need to see something that's a little more cleaner, a little more fresher, newer furniture, newer art. And I have to say that it's definitely a staple in terms of that. The materials that I use, the quality of the printing, that really matters. Being able to tap into the other agents that I know from the luxury market, because if you're not in the luxury market, it's kind of harder to tap into that. So I think those things really matter. I just did a presentation for someone the other day, and she said to me, she was one of the most professional presentations she had ever seen. And so I'm getting the listing, which is great. But again, because I'm giving, I'm giving her solutions.
Right.
I'm moving her and her family to some, so you can't just go in and sell. You need to find out their lifestyle, what they need, how you can help them. And then this way they feel safe with you, and they know that you know what you're doing, and you're able to get them to their goal.
Yeah, and I've noticed something in almost 20 years of doing this is that a lot of home sellers, they want to list their house on the market, and they don't expect there to be any expense until the property's sold and they have to, pay to move. I feel like, especially in the luxury market, people need to be aware and be prepared that repairs might need to be done prior to listing, that they may have to pay for staging out of pockets. What kind of expenses should sellers be prepared for, especially in the luxury market?
In luxury market, if you're doing staging, we're probably talking around $10,000 and upwards, depending on whether the apartment is empty or not.
Right.
So but you're going to get that back, tenfold.
Right. Absolutely.
So it is an expense that you're putting in. And we actually have a service within Corcoran called Revitalize that we actually pay for that staging, and we can just get the money back at closing. So where people don't want to, if the seller doesn't want to, really invest at that moment, it is something. So we have options, which is great. Staging can be expensive. Again, repairs. I met, just we're talking sort of like, you're right, it's a $600,000 house. And I went in and I said, okay, we need a little bit of paint. We need to do a little decluttering. And so I was able to sell that for $30,000 over ask, and it was really easy because there was an old leak, on the ceiling. But I said to him, can we paint that? Mm-hmm. So this way, someone doesn't walk in and say, okay, what's wrong with the roof when it had been repaired for 3 or 4 years. So you don't want to give someone the doubt in their mind. So that's so important to go in. It may cost, maybe, and I always say can cost. So invest. You might have to invest like $3,000 into your house to sell to get $10,000 back. Right. But the return and your ROI is going to be amazing.
Right. Yeah, and I see that a lot. What I'm seeing in this marketplace here in Pittsburgh, which is different than a few years ago, is our inventory, like you said, is down, significantly down. Mm-hmm. But I think because the interest rates are a little bit higher, buyers are taking the time and really still being very selective about what they're buying. So they won't just walk into a house that's 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom and go, okay, it fits, it works, I'm just going to buy it. They literally are going in and they're like, oh, it needs paint. Oh, I don't want to have to do X, Y, and Z. And so by just spending that little bit of money, investing in that in your own home, just that little bit of money, you can get a quicker sale, a much higher sale, a much easier sale, and then you're done and you just move on instead of it just sitting there potentially for months and doing price reductions and everything else.
Right. And it's interesting because when you're pricing a house, what's really important, right, is having the accessibility, making sure that you can get into the house. Because I know how many times have you called in and you can't get into a house, like the agent sort of gatekeeping a little bit, right? And this is like the worst. Right, part of it, right? So that's something that's really, so it really matters in terms of, getting into the house. The other thing that happens is if obviously it's too high, you get a certain amount of buyers, right? Mm-hmm. But if you go, and then if you do market, you can get a few more. But if you go slightly below, that's how you get the bidding war. And I think that sellers don't realize that because they always want to overprice. Always. And then, again, you're not going to get it right. But if I always go, we're not talking about, 10,000 under. We're talking about a few thousand makes a difference. And when that number is really, really a good number that you get the droves in and you'll get the bidding wars and you'll be able to do it because even in this market, you can't, even though the inventory is limited, you can't overprice.
Right. Yeah. And the other thing that drives me nuts about when it comes to pricing is that I'll have sellers that go, I want to list it at 203. And I'm like, why not do just 200? People search. We're an internet age. People are searching in price brackets. So if they're like, oh, I can look up to 200,000, no one's looking up to 203 then. Like they're looking at to 200. And a lot of times you're seeing $25,000 intervals until you hit about $500,000, and then they're 50,000, and then over $1 million is usually 100,000 intervals. So if you're making, you got to be really strategic. The old sales technique of, I'm going to list it at 149.9. In my opinion, doesn't make sense because you have people that are like, I'm going to look between 150 and 300. They're never going to see your listing. And it might work perfect for them. Exactly.
And it's just really important. And that's what, when there's a ton of, I'm sure in your market as well. I mean, in my market in Brooklyn, there's a lot of discount brokers. Mm-hmm. And they're like, what's the difference? And I'm like, there's a lot of difference. Because the biggest thing is their gatekeeping, right? Because they want the commission all to themselves because they've gone so low. Mm-hmm. And it does, we have expenses as realtors, when we list a house. Mm-hmm. And well, you're not, I can have that buyer. And if you're not letting me in, then how long is it going to be on the market for, right? And being able to take professional pictures and making sure that it's up everywhere because syndication matters so much and your SEO matters so much to make sure. I'll give you another great example. I had a friend of mine who lost a listing, and so we were talking about it, and I said, let me look, what was the address? And if you look in Google right under it, it'll give you views of how many impressions it has, and it was literally like 45,000, which may sound like a lot. And I said to her, you had almost a secret listing. I said, look at mine at that. It was a new listing. We were already at 7.1 million. Yeah, so absolutely. It was such a difference. So when you're hiring a discount broker, then that's what you're going to get. You're not going to get the amount of, people coming in and the views and being able to have your property sell for the amount that it should or above.
Right. Yeah, and anyone that's looking to buy, sell, invest, or rent in real estate in Pittsburgh, don't forget to give us a call, 412-353-3802 or bhsold.com. I will say in the Pittsburgh market, when you talk about discount brokers, I see one of two things. I either see the discount broker who is going to take a flat fee, put your house on the market, and do nothing else. They won't even take phone calls. This is all I'm doing. Right. They made their admin fee. That's that's what they got. Or you see the ones, just like you said, they'll put it on and then they gatekeep and because they want that commission. And I have a really funny story from an agent in my office that just happened this week. This guy has this property listed. He's a discount broker. He won't pay the fee to put it on our MLS, which I think is $50. So, I mean, it's not outrageous by any means, because he doesn't want to pay the $50. So now no one's going to see this property except for someone who drives past it. We searched everywhere. It's not on Zillow. It's not on Trulia. It's not anywhere.
Wow.
Just happened to be this agent was driving around with his client, and his client said, "Oh, I like that one." So now this agent on my company called and called and called and called, and after 4 days, finally got a hold of this guy. Didn't like that he was that he had a different agent, that my agent had a client, and that he wasn't an unrepresented buyer. Finally said, "Okay, I'll meet you to show you this property." He goes to meet, and the listing agent never shows up. So he finally gets a hold of the guy's broker, and he says, "Oh, come to the office and pick up the keys." He gets to the office and goes, "Oh, I can't find the keys anywhere." And then later that day, magically found them and gave it to him. And then when he actually went to show it, because he still had to schedule an appointment to show it, the listing agent showed up and basically tried to convince the buyer clients to use him in not a direct way, but said, "Hey, I might be able to get you a discount if you want to, refer them to me, and I can close the deal for you." So, that's what's happening is a super big disservice to the seller, because it could have already been sold and done and gone if he had just, properly marketed it, put on the MLS, did their job. And I don't think people realize that. They think, "Oh, I'm getting a deal. I'm saving 1% on the commission or 2% on the commission." And really, they're losing tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, on the sale of their home.
Yeah, you're so right. And people, don't realize, or agents, whatever, your fiduciary responsibility is to that seller. And obviously, what does that mean? That you get them as many offers, as many people into that home. And shame on him, because, as I'm a realtor here in
right.
in New York and New Jersey, and we're by a bunch of rules, and that's one, you can take a client from someone else. That's something that's, can really, he can be brought up, to the MLS. And so that's the whole thing. They don't realize tens and tens of thousands they are missing because this agent wants the commission all for themselves, and you're saving that 1%. You're saving nothing. You're losing, a lot. Yeah,
and I guarantee that owner has no idea. The owner has absolutely.
Right.
The listing agent's probably telling the owner, "I'm really not getting any calls. I think we're overpriced. Let's drop the price." And I mean, I don't know that for sure. I would just assume from previous experience that's what's happening. And in fact, they're not servicing their client correctly. Right. Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to communicating with your clients, I mean, what should someone be looking for when it comes to communicating with their agent? How often should they expect to hear from their agent? What ways should their agent be communicating with them from your experience?
So it depends actually what's going on, but you should really be hearing from your agent every other day, especially if you have an active listing. I'm probably talking to my sellers every day, because there's something that either we're negotiating to get the deal done, or we're in the middle of a transaction. And sometimes, once you actually get in a fully executed contract, things slow down a little bit. So then I make sure that every maybe 3 days I'm just checking in, and letting them know that I'm still here. We're waiting for the appraisal. We're waiting for the commitment, because as a good agent, when you sit down and meet with that person to list your house, will go through what the transaction is going to look like. But of course, when we've done this, hundreds of times, for us, and maybe thousands, depending on how long you're doing this, right? We know it, but you can't forget that. You have to tell them, okay, now we're waiting for the appraisal. Then we're waiting for a commitment. And what makes me very, special here in New York is in New York, it takes about, 60 to 70 days to close. If it's not a co-op it could take 90. Wow. New Jersey, I can close in 45 days. So I'm going to tell you what it's like in your market. So I'm able to really look at that timeline and make sure that my sellers or my buyers, in the New Jersey end, and the agents, I'm saying, don't worry, we're going to match up that closing date. This is something that I do very well, being able to move a lot of people, selling their house in, in New York, and then moving them to Jersey. So I did that a lot, especially through the pandemic. So it's really being able to tell them, okay, here's your next step. Okay, now we've appraisal now, and so it's really, if your seller or your buyer should never be calling you to find out what's going on.
Right. Yeah, I feel really really lucky now because in Pittsburgh, if you're fully cash, depending on how cooperative the borough is or the city is, we can close in 14 to 21 days on a cash deal. And mortgages are usually amazing. 30, sometimes 45. But I mean, it's rare a deal goes more than 45 days, unless you're talking commercial. Commercial does take 60, 90, 120 days. But residential, I mean, I've literally closed residential. My quickest closing was 11 days. So I think we take that for granted. I don't even realize other areas are so much worse. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just closed in a co-op. It took me 6 months. Yeah. Because the boards here, and you have to know that's really special to have, that we have here in New York, is we have co-ops. So you have to do what's called a board package, which the client has to have tax returns and W-2s and reference letters. And it's my last one I did was 152 pages.
Yeah, that's
before it. Then they have to meet with the board. And this is a big lawsuit that's going on now because the board doesn't have to tell you why you were turned down. Mm-hmm. Okay, so they're trying to overturn that because you really need to know, because the board is going to sit there and look at your finances and decide whether you are going to be acceptable in the building. Now, what and this is really important here in New York, is that having a really good agent is, I'm very, very well versed in co-ops, so I'll look to see what the thresholds are. I'll know to see, I can look at a client and say, they have to have, when I look at their finances, they have to have over a 700 credit score. Their DTI, which is your debt to income ratio, has to be no higher than 28 to 30%. So if you don't look at your client, your buyer has to fill out a financial sheet. You need to know this information before you take them out, because you don't want to disappoint them 6 months down the line when they can't afford it because you haven't done your job. As a realtor, this is something that you have to know how to do.
Yeah, that's wild, because when you think about it, not only do you have to list the property if you're listing a co-op, you have to list it and market it and find someone who's willing to pay a price that is acceptable to the seller. After all that work, you can get an agreement. Everyone can come to terms, and then you take it to the co-op board, and they're like, yeah, no.
Exactly. And you won't, and this is, well into the sale, because you have to go, there's a couple of, you have to have an appraisal, you have to have a commitment, you have something called an ASTAC. So there's a lot of things before you even get that interview. So you're well into the sale thinking that you're going to get this apartment because your agent didn't do the right job, and the agent wasn't educated. So that's what I'm saying. When you're using discount brokers or you're using agents that truly, truly don't do their job, it hurts them. And I feel so bad when I hear these stories with people, and making sure that they're going through, or I'm trying to, I do a little bit of coaching to agents and really think, okay, this is the procedures you need to do, and being able to make sure that you are doing the right thing for your clients. Right. Very important.
Wow. Well, I mean, I've even learned a lot today. I mean, I work with Ryan, Sirhan, and he's taught me a lot, but man, you've taught me a lot more today than before.
I love Ryan. I think he's great. I've taken his courses. I've done some coaching with him as well. With his team, not him. And really love Ryan. He's amazing.
Great. Fantastic. Well, if you have one last thing, anything you want to leave with our listeners today about real estate or yourself or anything in general?
If you're in New York or New Jersey, definitely look me up. My phone number is 718-309-4054. And again, my name is Laurie Savino with Corcoran.
Yeah, fantastic, Laurie. I really appreciate you taking the time. For anyone who's in Pittsburgh, you're looking to buy, sell, invest, or rent, don't forget bhsold.com, 412-353-3802. If you're looking anywhere in the world, feel free to reach out to me as well. I have tons of great connections across the country, into other countries, and of course, I can refer you out to Laurie as well. This has been Real Estate in the Morning with Elise Bickel Tauber and Bridge Home Realty, and we will see you in 2 weeks.